and welcome to the Sunday morning drive. Football season, well, football preseason is upon us. We're still about a month away from the good stuff, but man, oh man, Casey, I am so glad that football is back.
Oh yeah, so am I. I'm happy football's back. It officially started for me on Friday with the Lions, so I'm excited. I'm excited for football to actually be back.
And as you guys can see, as you know, I'm Chris. I'm part of the morning show. You guys all join me Monday through Friday on the morning show. Make sure you do that tomorrow morning. I am joined right now by my guy, Casey. And coming in right now is Kyle. Put your hands together. Kyle, welcome to the show, sir. Super happy to have Kyle here with us today.
What's up, guys? How we doing this morning? You got
All
the
right,
Jets
gentlemen.
jersey, and I'm rocking the Jets Nation.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. All right, guys. A lot of stuff.
How are you guys doing today?
Oh, we're great to be here. A lot of stuff to get to this morning. Let's jump right into it.
Sorry about that. I got messed up on the time zones.
No. You're good. So my guy Brett, he might be joining us in a little bit, but we're gonna jump right into the action, and we're gonna start breaking down what took place during preseason on Friday. And I don't know about you guys. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks on the morning show. I have never seen a quarterback basically be invisible. That's what Jordan Love has been to the league since he came into the league. You look at any quarterback that has come into the league with the hype of Jordan Love, replacing Aaron Rodgers eventually, and we've seen nothing from him. We haven't seen tape from practice. We haven't seen tape from camp. People haven't really been talking about what he can or cannot do. You look at any other quarterback of name that comes into the league, and 2 weeks in, you're seeing the video, right? Look when Tua first came in. There was that thing, how's the hip? Can he throw? 2 weeks in, the Dolphins have released tape of Tua making throws, right? Because as the league, you want to know, what can Tua do? So we're seeing those videos of Tua making those throws. When the rookie quarterbacks come in, what do you see? A week or two into camp, you see those little videos, right? Oh, look how accurate they are. Look at this deep completion. But we never saw that stuff from Jordan Love. Now, maybe Green Bay just can't afford a guy to take that tape. I don't know. But regardless, we didn't see it. So there was a lot of hype and speculation around what it was that we were going to see when he made his preseason debut. And Casey, were you impressed with what we saw out of Jordan Love?
I mean, I was pretty impressed with Jordan Love. He honestly surprised me. Me and my buddy were texting back and forth to where it's like, okay, well, are the Packers going to be a problem this year now because they might have a competent quarterback by replacing Aaron Rodgers? It's hard to replace Aaron Rodgers, and he's not going to be on Aaron Rodgers' level, but I mean, I was pretty impressed with how he looked on Friday against the Bengals.
And again, like you take preseason for what it's worth, and you try not to make too much out of it. But he did all right for himself. He came in there, he made a couple of throws, he had a nice touchdown pass that he put some touch on. And for me, I think he checked the boxes of what you at least baseline needed to see from Jordan Love in his first preseason game. Kyle, did Jordan Love impress you as a Jets fan?
As a Jets fan, yes. Hopefully in 10 years, we could trade for him, What impressed me the most about Jordan Love is that his connection with his young receivers. I do think he's going to have a good connection with Romeo Doubs. What he was saying. So, he's not going to get as much reps. But just from seeing what he was doing in the first drive with all the rookies and everything, I was pretty impressed for someone that was just on the bench, just watching Aaron Rodgers and just taking notes. Hopefully, he does that in the regular season. For fantasy-wise, I'm definitely going to be looking to making some trades if I need a quarterback in midseason. But Jordan Love is definitely off to a great start so far.
Hey, guys, right now we're going to welcome into the stream Brett. Brett, how's it going, my guy?
Doing good. How are y'all doing?
And the connection loose.
Brett, I think you might be the guy to ask. First impressions, Jordan Love. How are you feeling walking away from that, looking at what's come this season? Are you feeling okay? Did you want to see more from him?
I feel much more confident than I did walking into the game. See, when I watched him last year, when he came in against the Eagles, he looked really good. He looked really sharp. He had some really nice touch on the ball. He was accurate. He was poised. And I didn't know if that was just him or he was just having a really good day. And he came in yesterday, and he showed the same thing against the Bengals. Calm, poised, controlled. That touch and the touch of precision on that touchdown pass to Romeo Doubs was extremely impressive. So I thought he looked really impressive, and he's much farther along than I anticipated him to be. Judging from one preseason game, well, we'll see if that sticks.
Over to Tampa Bay, I guess you can call it a competition for the starting quarterback job in Tampa. I don't really know if you're a Tampa Bay fan, if there's going to be a winner in this situation as far as how the fans are going to feel. But Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, they're battling it out. I have to say, and you have to, if you didn't watch the game and you're just at the box score, you're like, oh, Baker, okay, one incompletion, he throws a touchdown, okay. But if you watch the game, a lot of it was dink and dunk. All right, he wasn't flashing a cannon or anything like that. But what I will say, and again, it is Baker Mayfield, so you take the good when you can get it. He checked off the boxes that I needed to see for a competent NFL quarterback, which sounds ridiculous given the fact that this is an NFL team and you have a guy that was a starter for that many years in Cleveland and is supposed to be a competent NFL quarterback, but you're also talking about a guy who's led the league in interceptions since he's come into the league, right? You're talking about him or Kyle, who are replacing Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. So when I look at it, I don't have a better indication of who I think should be in Tampa Bay. I do think that Baker should have a leg up on Kyle just based on what we saw in the preseason game, but obviously more goes into that. Casey, where do you sit on Baker versus Kyle leading the ship in Tampa?
I think right now it's going to be Baker to at least start out the season, unless Kyle Trask has an amazing second and third game of the preseason and Baker just kind of does not have two good games. I just feel like just because he has the experience, Kyle Trask is still young. Start Baker to start out the season, and then if he starts playing bad, then you can always throw Kyle Trask in there. So I think at least to start out the season, it's going to be Baker to start out just because he has the experience and he looked. I mean, if he makes smart passes, then I think he'll definitely start for the Bucs.
I agree, and you kind of have to go. He's being he's not being a franchise quarterback. His time in that guys for he has that he's dealt with that pressure before. Brett, at the end of the day, this is 14 in a if you're Tampa, are you comfortable handing the reins over to him to start this season?
I think the only result on Tampa Bay this year is going to be an increase in alcohol sales for the fans, because this is going to be brutal to watch. Am I more comfortable with Baker Mayfield than Kyle Trask or John Wolford? Yeah, but it's like the absolute biggest mid-off when it comes to a quarterback competition I might have ever seen. So, yes, I'm more comfortable, but looking at who Baker Mayfield's better and competing against, that's really not saying that much.
Kyle, what are the benefits of starting Kyle? So if you're coming out of camp and you're Tampa Bay and you're like, they're close. Baker might be a little bit ahead, but they're basically on the same level. what would you say to give Kyle the nod over Baker?
I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't give him the nod over Baker. I think Baker's been in the league for a couple years. He's been in an okay system. I think he impressed a lot of people when he went to the Rams. I think he's in a better space now. He's got Mike Evans, he's got Chris Godwin. He's got some talent around him. Kyle, I think he needs to learn a little bit more. I know we all saw a couple passes of them in practice, and they were throwing them over the tight ends. But in the preseason, I thought Baker looked a lot composed, looked like he actually enjoyed playing the game, had more control of the offense. He was 6 for 10, 99 yards, not that bad, but I think John Wolford probably has a better chance. But in this position, I'd take Baker Mayfield over Kyle Trask. Maybe side Kyle Trask down to QB3 for a little bit, let him learn a little bit, because I don't know. I think John played a heck of a game, 10 for 17, 111 yards and a touchdown. He did pretty well. So at the QB2 and QB3, I'll definitely have some question marks there and who's going to be QB2, QB3 going into the season.
Kyle is Team Baker. He's going to have pins to support Baker starting in Tampa Bay. So if you are a Tampa Bay Baker fan, Kyle, your guy, because you heard it first. He put Baker out there, and to some extent, I agree. I mean, you want to go with the devil you know as opposed to the devil you don't. And we've seen what Baker can do in this league. And it wasn't all terrible in Cleveland. He had moments. So I know Browns fans still might be in their feelings about what Baker was when he was leaving. But to Denver, this is supposed to be the coming out party, right? This was the coming out party for the new look Russell Wilson, the new look Denver offense. What was that? Was the defense going to be as good as what it was last year? We didn't see so much of that side, but so much of the focus was on Russell Wilson. What has Sean Payton done with Russ since he got there? Appearance-wise, Russ is down. He's down some weight, right? So he looks better. He looks in better shape. But did we see what we thought we were going to see offense? It was up and down, Casey, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the difference in between this year and last year is the coach. And I think that Sean Payton is going to steer Russell Wilson's mind in the right direction to where he's going to be focused on football and he's going to be playing good football rather than last year. It's just I just think the system what last year wasn't for Russell Wilson. I feel like Sean Payton is definitely going to figure out that system that's going to get Russell Wilson in, and I think the Broncos are going to be really good this year.
Brett, do you think that losing the receivers that he's lost so far before the season even begins, do you think that has any potential to derail the Broncos season? Or, because let's be honest, if you look at Sean Payton's track record with quarterbacks, some of which are far less talented than Russell Wilson, even if you want to say Russell's lost a step, some of the guys that Sean Payton has made look good in his system, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, he's won with those guys. So I wouldn't even argue it. I would honestly say I think this version of Russell Wilson is above at least those two quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So that being said, Brett, do you feel that this system is enough to elevate Russ back to where it was, despite the injuries that we've already seen and any future potential injuries that might happen?
Yeah, no, I think it does. Sean Payton has always been extremely good with quarterbacks. What I saw with Russ in that first game back, I know he didn't have a great year last year, and to me, he looked actually pretty rough in that first preseason game, but it's preseason. He's learning a new system. He doesn't have any connection with any of the receivers out there because they're like second and third stringers. Was I impressed with really anything I saw? I thought that third drive he had where he had that touchdown drive, he finally started to look more comfortable, but those first two are rough. But I'm just attributing that to being the first preseason game, not knowing really any of the guys out there, these second and third stringers. So I think that Sean Payton's going to come in and he's going to make Russ a good quarterback again. Denver's probably making the playoffs. They're going to be a fun watch this year.
Kyle, are you on the Russ Payton train, or are you not as sure as everybody else on the panel?
I don't know. I think it looked pretty bad, unfortunately. I think they took a lot of shots at my offense coordinator, but I mean, it's football. You know, you're gonna talk your smack when you can. But I don't know. I mean, hopefully, you know, he works out. I think last year was very disappointing for Russ. It was like Christmas for him. He came there, they gave him everything he wanted, and it's like he didn't show up on game day. You know, everyone looks good in practice. You know, we all talk about practice, right? But when we're playing the game, that's what matters. And from my eyes, I know it's preseason, but damn, Russ, I don't know. You're rusty a little bit. You got to get back into football shape. I know everyone says he looks good, but I don't know. Just because you look good, playing good doesn't show. I think they're really rough on that first couple series. But best of luck to Denver. We'll see in week 5. So hopefully we come out with the win. But, you know, they need to figure it out over there. But, you know, I got some rookies over there. I'm looking at Marvin Mims. Looks really nice. I know they're talking about Courtland Sutton being in the better shapes now. So hopefully, you know, Russ can sling it. You know, you got Jerry Jeudy. That's still a top receiver in the league. Everyone's going to, you know, either double team him. You know, they're going to give some teams some problems. They do got a great defense. So maybe, you know, the defense brings up that offense a lot more. But if they're going to win games, if they're going to make the playoffs, especially in the AFC, Russ needs to show up more. He needs to be that mobile quarterback that we all know he can be if he needs to. But if he's playing like he was this week, it's going to be a long season in Denver.
And, you know, Kyle, you said everyone looks good in practice. I'm going to come out here and say it. Dak Prescott ain't looking great in practice. So if everyone looks good in practice and Dak Prescott's throwing all those picks, I don't know how Cowboy fans are feeling right now. But we'll jump into that later on when we do our NFC East preview. Let's jump over to Saturday night now, gentlemen. We had a lot of great stuff happen in Friday night, but now we're going to kind of move to Saturday night, and we're going to start with the rookie Anthony Richardson. He made his debut against the Buffalo Bills. I know that DeMar Hamlin was a lot of the focus in that game as well, seeing him back on the field in pads. What a great moment, not just for Bills fans, but for NFL fans in general. But shifting and looking at the rookie quarterback, again, a little up and down, but there were some flashes. There's no arguing the athleticism that Richardson is going to bring to the field this season. Is he going to look like a great thrower of the football his first couple of seasons? Probably not, right? Because he is just such an athletic specimen. He's also going to be able to hide some of that stuff. If you look at Cam his first couple of years in the league, if you look at Lamar his first couple of years in the league, they had to improve. They had to work on some things, and their athleticism made up for that. When things break down, if you are a superior athletic beast, you can do some things some other guys can't do. But looking at the entire picture, Casey, where do you sit on your first real look at Anthony Richardson in the NFL?
I mean, like you said, it was very up and down. I mean, ever since he got drafted, he has such a high ceiling, but his floor is so low. It's like you don't know what you're really going to get with this guy just because of his college tape. I mean, yeah, it looked good. He looked good in spots, but it's also he's like you said, he's very athletic. He has a huge arm. And is he going to be good at hitting those tight windows that NFL football has? It's not like college to where you have these huge gaps where you can easily hit these receivers that are wide open. The window is a receiver that's wide open is probably only a step or two ahead of the defender. So can Anthony Richardson make those passes like that rather than having that big arm? I mean, I think he's going to be really good. I was hoping that the Lions were going to draft him as like their quarterback of the future, but I mean, I'm a huge Anthony Richardson fan, so I mean, I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on him in the Colts this year.
Brett, did you want to see more? I mean, obviously, it's game one of the preseason. They're not going to come out there and do anything crazy. But do you think that what you saw on the field week one from Richardson, did you see enough to be like, okay, the foundation is there, there's work to do, or were you a little disappointed with the hype?
I was kind of disappointed. So I think with the Colts, I think the hard part is, and this is where I think Jim Irsay really messed up, is I think Anthony Richardson's going to need a really strong run game this year. So I thought Jonathan Taylor would have been instrumental to helping him out. Because the thing with Anthony Richardson is, okay, he has a cannon, but is he going to be accurate? Is he going to be precise? But most importantly, is he going to make good decisions with the football? That interception he threw against the Bills, that really stuck out to me. That was just really, really, really bad. Like, he should have just taken the sack, but instead he's trying to throw. His feet aren't set. He's just trying to use straight arm to throw it out of bounds. Or no, it wasn't even out of bounds. He's trying to hit someone, and it just ended up going straight to the Bills. So I think Anthony Richardson could have a very good year, but I think the Colts need to make sure that they have a solid running back to make sure that you're not putting the weight of the entire offense on him right away. Because if you do that, he's going to fail, and it's going to be really bad. But I think if you give him a solid run game, simplify the reads, don't put too much on him, he will probably have a very, very good year in terms of rookie quarterbacks. But to me, it will look like exactly what we all knew. If the Colts try to come in with some average running game and put everything on Anthony Richardson, it's going to be a long year in Indianapolis.
And Brett, I hear you. The running back position is obviously important. You know, there's all this stuff going on with Jonathan Taylor, but I'm sorry. Jim Irsay is spending his money on saving dolphins. My man just dropped $20 million to move a dolphin across the country to reunite him with it. Guys, this is family we're talking about, all right? Y'all are upset because Jonathan Taylor can't. Football is a game. Jim Irsay is reuniting families with his money, and everybody wants to be upset because he's not giving millions of dollars to some guy playing a game. Like, I don't know. I think family comes first. And Irsay, this guy, you can't make this stuff up. $20 million. You literally, like, I saw the story, you know, when it broke 4 or 5 days ago, and I was like, oh, this is like The Onion or something. Like, this is a hilarious story. But I read it, and I was like, no, this is real. This man just dropped 20 large to fly a dolphin across the country. Or maybe he wasn't flying it. Maybe he was. I don't know how you move a dolphin across the country.
I think they're flying. I think they're planning on flying it.
That's even more. That's more interesting to me, and I want to know the logistics of that.
Right? It's like, do you like put it in like a little big tank and throw it on a cargo plane and just do it that way?
With the running backs they have now, the Dolphin might be running back one by the time the season opens.
You're right.
So we go from Indy to Tennessee, where we have two things going on, all in the same battle. It's the battle of who stays in Tennessee and who ends up getting traded. And in all honesty, the winner, the better player in this battle might be the one who gets traded. So I have no idea. Will Levis, obviously, you want him to be the future of the team. That's why you draft him. But at the same time, Malik Willis is still essentially a rookie in this league, right? He hasn't had a lot of time in the league. He hasn't had a huge opportunity to really showcase what he has. Granted, what we saw of him last year, not that great. But needless to say, they're both battling. One's going to most likely be the backup. The other one is going to be heading out. The assumption is going to be Levis stays. That's why they drafted him. They drafted him to be the heir apparent to Ryan Tannehill. It is in the best interest of Malik Willis to show out, if possible, this preseason, because being traded to another team to compete for their backup spot or be on their practice squad is going to be a lot better than just being cut by Tennessee and not finding yourself an opportunity. Given everything you saw from Tennessee this first week of the preseason, Brett, how do you feel about the prospect of Malik Willis getting an opportunity with another team, whether it be through a trade or whether it be them eventually releasing him and then him signing on to potentially be a backup somewhere else?
I like that idea. I would try to trade him because at the end of the day, they drafted Will Levis to be their QB2 or their backup of the future or their starter of the future, whatever that plan is. I'm sure they hope that he's going to be a starter. I just really don't see it. But when it comes to Malik Willis, I think he's just the odd man out, and I think the Titans would do very well by him just trading him, getting whatever picks they can, or just releasing him and letting him go sign elsewhere.
Coming into the preseason and coming out of the draft, Casey, there was a lot of talk about Levis and, where is his head? He did the whole, he's a selfie mirror guy. He's the show off my abs guy. He's the flex in front of the camera guy. But at the same time, he is a talented quarterback. I mean, you can look at guys and say that they have that diva mentality or that diva personality, and maybe he does have a little bit of that in him. But at the same time, the Tennessee Titans saw enough to say, hey, this could be the guy to replace Ryan Tannehill this year, next year, the year after. Granted, they said the same thing last year at Malik Willis, and you're seeing where that is right now. But what did you see from Levis, week one of the preseason, as far as, do you see it there? Do you see the foundation of the guy that could take over this franchise? Or is this the same conversation we're going to be having next year when they draft another quarterback to replace Ryan Tannehill?
I think they're going to try to go with Will Levis. I think Malik Willis just wasn't – I mean, he was, a third-round draft pick, I think it was. So I just think that he wasn't that high on their radar to where it's like, okay, well, they took a chance on him. If he works, he works. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And then I think they've always had an eye on Will Levis. I mean, tape shows, he didn't have the greatest record at Kentucky, but he was a very gritty guy. I mean, his offensive line wasn't really that great at Kentucky to where he was getting hit a lot. And I think his tape shows to where he can make some good passes and he can play in the NFL. I mean, he didn't look that good on Saturday, I think that his interception, ball kind of got a little away from him. He kind of floated it a little too high to his receiver. I mean, I think that between him and Malik Willis, it's going to be Will Levis is going to be that quarterback of the future for the Titans, unless he plays horrible. If they put him in this year, then they decide to draft another quarterback next year and make it 3 years in a row drafting QBs.
Bryce Young makes his debut. I had a brain fart there. I knew Bryce Young's name, and then I didn't know Bryce Young's name for a minute. Bryce Young makes his preseason debut. I think the biggest conversation for Carolina fans coming out of that game is, dear God, can we stop getting him hit? He took a lot of hits for a preseason week one game for a rookie quarterback that is supposed to be the face of your franchise for the next 10 or 12 years. If I'm a Carolina fan walking away from this, I want my quarterback to get used to the speed of the NFL. I want him to be okay getting hit. I don't want to be holding my breath 2 or 3 times in a preseason game because my rookie quarterback took a couple of shots where I'm like, dear God, can we just get him out of the game at this point? I would rather be guaranteed he's healthy going into week one as opposed to seeing what he can do, because I'm not so sure right now. Casey, did you hold your breath at all watching Bryce Young get popped a couple of times?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bryce Young is not the biggest guy. He's a pretty small quarterback. So it's one of those things to where it's like when a guy like that gets hit and you're like, oh, like, is he okay? Is he going to come back and be able to play after that hit? I mean, I feel bad for Bryce Young. I feel like he's going to have a sour taste in his mouth after this season in the NFL with the Panthers, just because I don't feel like that team is good or is going to be good. And I feel bad for the guy.
Brett, between him getting popped and fans holding their breath that he might have a rib injury week one of the preseason, what did you see from Bryce Young as far? Because he was composed. There was a couple times where he stood in there. I saw him go read 1, read 2, deliver the ball, and then get popped. So it looked like, as far as his QB acumen and his QB IQ, that stuff seems to be all in line with what we thought it was going to be. What was your take on that, Brett?
I thought the fact that he was staying composed, even though his offensive line was the equivalent of traffic cones, I thought it was very good. I was impressed. He stayed composed. It didn't matter. He kept getting popped, but he kept getting right back up and continued to make the right read. I think he showed all the signs of a franchise QB. And I think once you start getting the starting offensive line in there, thinking things get better. Let's hope so. Get him the actual starting running backs, and you can give him a run game to support him. But overall, when it comes to Bryce Young that first game, I thought it was really impressive. His resiliency, his resolve, and his just poise, composure, all those intangibles that you can't really measure on a stat sheet. I thought those all look phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see what he does this year.
Gentlemen, Ravens Nation is waving the flag this morning. They have won 24 straight preseason. Do we care? Do we? All right. Listen, I know as a fan, as a Dolphin fan, I guess if Miami had won 24 straight preseason games, I would be talking about it a little bit. Casey, what is it really, on a serious note, what does it tell you, if anything, about them winning that many straight preseason games dating back to 2015, I believe?
I think that is like really impressive. I mean, I kind of take the preseason with a grain of salt just because I always think back to the year the Lions went 0-16. They went 4-0 in the preseason. So it's like I just take preseason with a grain of salt, but to do it 24 straight games is still impressive just because you still have to get your second, third, fourth string guys up for these games and getting them to know your system to be able to win these games. I mean, I think it's very impressive.
Brett, impressed or not impressed? 24 straight preseason wins.
I mean, it is impressive. Like I said, I totally agree with that. I think preseason, you take it with a grain of salt. But to be able to go 6 straight years, go 4-0, no matter who you throw in there with a whole bunch of just, rotating players in and out, that is really impressive. And I'm really curious what's going to happen first. Lamar actually plays in a playoff game, or the Dolphins or the Ravens lose a preseason game.
Brett, why did you hate this morning, my man? Why did you wake up and just decide hate on Ravens Nation? I'm going to add that, though, just because you opened that door. It's interesting to me. So you look at it, 24 straight preseason wins. So your first thought is, damn, they have a lot of good depth. Their late draft picks are clearly better than other teams' late draft picks. Their undrafted rookie signings are clearly better than other teams' undrafted rookie signings. Like, the depth at the back end of their roster must be pretty good because they've won all these preseason games against what should be similar depth on other teams. Then you look at the season and they suffer all these injuries year after year, but yet the depth doesn't appear to be that good during the season. So that's where I'm kind of like, well, wait a minute. They have all this depth in the preseason. Their depth is clearly better than everyone else. Then we get to the regular season, and Lamar aside, quarterback's a different animal, as you know. But, last year, year before, all their running backs go down. They have injuries in the secondary. They can't keep a secondary healthy. Where is the depth there, Ravens Nation? So I love the fact that 24 straight preseason games. I hope you run the table this year as well. I hope you just keep that streak going because I love a good streak. Who doesn't love a good streak? But at the end of the day, like Brett said, we need Lamar Jackson to be healthy for an entire season and a playoff run. That's where the bragging rights are going to come if you're a fan of the Baltimore Ravens. But for now, Ravens Nation, talk it up. Talk about how you've won so much in the preseason. I'm all for it. I am here for it. Gentlemen, tonight, it's not over. If you thought football was over this weekend, it is not. We have 2 more games happening tonight. We have the Chiefs and the Saints, the 49ers and the Raiders. Let's start with the Chiefs and the Saints. What are you looking for tonight in that game, Casey?
I'm looking forward to seeing how Derek Carr is going to play inside that Saints offense. I mean, I know it's only going to be probably for like one series, but still, I mean, you can kind of tell based on a series how the guy is going to possibly look. Other than that, I mean, the Chiefs, The Chiefs are the Chiefs. I'm really not. I mean, I think they're going to be good. There's really nothing I'm looking forward to with the Chiefs this year. Other than that, yeah, it's kind of how Derek Carr is going to be inside that Saint offense.
Brett, what are you looking for tonight? Chiefs and Saints.
It's really the same thing, honestly. I think all eyes are going to be on the Saints and Derek Carr because we all know what the Chiefs are capable of. I don't really think anybody's looking for too much out of the Chiefs. They're going to be watching their young guys and see if you can predict any future breakout stars that can help solidify this offense and defense for another championship run. But all the storylines, all the big questions are going to be with Saints and how's Derek Carr looking. How is he going to look better than he did with the Raiders? So the Chiefs, I'm just looking to see development and see what young players could help them and see who breaks out. But all eyes are going to be on Derek Carr tonight. And I'm curious, too, and how he's going to look.
Don't worry, KC fan. I got you. I'm looking at Justin Ross tonight for you guys. Justin Ross, he's a receiver for Kansas City. He's had a great camp. One of the things that we talk about when we talk about the Chiefs is the weapons for Patrick Mahomes and the fact that, he anything he has, he can make it work. But I think that Patrick would appreciate having a guy besides Kelsey, and maybe Justin Ross could be this guy. He's had a terrific camp. He's shown glimpses of potential number one ability. So I'm just curious to see the continued development of Justin Ross at the wide receiver position. But gentlemen, you both hit it right on the head. Carr is going to be the focal point tonight. Will there be, and I don't want to jinx this, if there's wood around you, knock on it, please. Will there be a Michael Thomas sighting tonight? I don't know. Does that guy still play football? Can he still play football? I'm not quite sure. I would love to see a Michael Thomas sighting tonight. That would be pretty exciting if you are a New Orleans Saints fan. Our second game that we're looking at this evening, it's the Raiders. I don't even know if Raider fan is excited to watch their own team at this point. It might just be a dumpster fire in Las Vegas. But they're going up against the San Francisco 49ers tonight. There will not be any Brock Purdy, but similar to what's happening in Tennessee, I think you could argue we're going to see the same situation taking place in San Francisco. You have two quarterbacks in Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. The coach of the 49ers has already come out and basically said that Sam Darnold has some Steve Young in him or some nonsense that Shanahan was spewing. If you've ever seen a man that really believes in himself, it is Mr. Shanahan. This man thinks so highly of himself. He thought that if the Niners made it to the Super Bowl, he could bring in Phillip Rivers off the street, coach him up for 2 weeks, and be competitive. Again, I mean, I love a guy who believes in himself. Believe me, I do. But the bravado that Mr. Shanahan has, where he thinks he can make any quarterback a top tier. I mean, I love it. I am here for it. Count me in. But it's going to be similar, Casey, to what we see in Tennessee. It looks like on the surface, Darnold is probably going to be the backup. So he's out there to kind of get his reps in, get himself in a position to either back up Purdy or step in for Purdy if need be this season. And it looks like Trey Lance is auditioning for his next team. Obviously, San Francisco paid a lot. And as a Dolphin fan, thank you. We appreciate that. They paid a lot to bring Mr. Lance to San Francisco. It hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And it looks like he's auditioning for his next role. So, Casey, do you think, where do you sit on that? Where do you sit in the Trey Lance argument? Is it right for San Francisco to move off of him this early if that's what they do? Or should they try to get something out of their investment and have him be the backup this season?
I would try to move on. I mean, Trey Lance is, me and my buddy have this conversation all the time. He's a quarterback that has pretty much no tape, that has a lot of hype. Just because, I mean, yeah, he has tape at North Dakota State. I'm pretty sure that's where he went to college. But like his NFL tape, there's nothing there. And it's one of those things to where when he does have tape, he doesn't, in my opinion, he doesn't look the greatest. But also it's the same thing for Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. So hopefully Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt, and hopefully he can play well like he did at the end of last year, but also Brock Purdy's also like, is he a one-shot wonder? Is it just a one-time thing to where this year NFL teams, NFL defenses are going to start learning what Brock Purdy does, and they're going to start locking him down? And how good is this 49er team going to be? Is their defense going to carry them to the playoffs, or are they going to actually have a quarterback that can step up and win them some games?
Brett, you have to think at some point when you play with fire, you're going to get burned, right? And for so long, and say what you want about Jimmy Garoppolo, I support Jimmy more than most, but at the end of the day, when Jimmy was in San Francisco, he was that security blanket. Even though he has an injury history, for the most part, you know what you get when you put Jimmy out there with good pieces around him. You get average to slightly above average quarterback play. You get a guy who's going to make a couple of stupid mistakes here and there, but for the most part, he's going to keep the ship where it needs to be going. Well, now Jimmy's gone, and to Casey's point, you have Brock Purdy in there who looked amazing at the end of last season into the playoffs until he got injured. But is it going to be one of those situations where once there's tape on him, he isn't nearly as amazing as he was? You have the next Steve Young, apparently, and Sam Darnold over there. And then you have the guy that was supposed to be an elite talent in Trey Lance. So they say when you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. When you have three quarterbacks, I don't know what's below no quarterbacks. Is it possible, Brett, that none of these quarterbacks work out? I don't know. At some point, if you're Shanahan, where's the line where you've gone too far and you can't just keep winning with quarterbacks you shouldn't be winning with?
Well, at least with Shanahan, don't worry. I'm sure he still has Phillip Rivers on speed dial if things start going south. But it's interesting to me what's really going on there, because I think Kyle Shanahan's one of the smartest offensive minds in football. He has a phenomenal offense. I'm not going to take that away from him. I also think that he's been very delusional this offseason with the comments he has been making. I think Steve Young, right now at his age, is probably still a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. And if Phillip Rivers was the quarterback of the 49ers going against the Chiefs, the score would have been 28-0, and Phillip Rivers has 3 interceptions by halftime. I think he's been delusional. Like, he's been over that line of confidence at this point, but he's still a phenomenal offensive mind. And with Trey Lance, I think what you really need to do, too, is I agree, I think you trade him while the hype's still there, while everybody still thinks really highly of him. Because honestly, I think it would almost hurt him. Or if he goes in and he struggles, all of a sudden you're knocking his stock down and you're not going to get as much for him. So I think what will end up needing to happen eventually, and what I think will happen, is you're going to end up drafting another quarterback. You're going to have to use like a premium pick to try to get a premium quarterback or try to trade up for one. Because I don't think they have that guy on their roster. Because you have 3 quarterbacks who the best one has half a year of great play, but now next year he's going to come back. Now you have film on him. Now you have tape on him. We're going to see how great Brock Purdy really is this year, because now you can adjust. Now you can see his tendencies and his habits. So I think this will be an interesting year in San Fran, and I'm going to be especially invested in Brock Purdy. I want to see if he can make the adjustments to what the defenses are going to start throwing at him.
It is going to be an interesting year. And Brett, you're breaking hearts in San Fran. You crushed all their quarterbacks. You're talking about Rivers being better than you're talking about Steve Young currently being better than Darnold. You're breaking hearts in San Francisco. Come at him. If you are a San Fran fan, all right, this Sports Empire Network, come get some of Brett. I don't know why the disrespect is happening there, but it's all right. We're going to move on, and we're going to move on to the NFC East, gentlemen. We are going to do a quick breakdown and predictions of the NFC East. Let me quickly run through how that shook out last year in case anybody forgot. It was the Eagles at 14-3, the Cowboys at 12-5, the Giants at 9-7-1. All 3 of those teams making it to the playoffs. And then the Commanders at 8-1, rounding up the rear. Everybody was 500 or above in that division. let's start from the bottom and make our way up to the top. The Washington Commanders, Sam Howell is going to be their starting quarterback this season. He looked okay week 1 of the preseason. I watched the Sam Howell. I watched the highlights. I didn't watch the game. But I watched the Sam Howell highlights, and I said, okay, he made some throws. He did some things where I was like, this could be a competent quarterback, which at this point in the NFL, that's what you're looking for. Do I think that offensively he has a ton to work with? He has some pieces here and there. I do love the defense, though, of the Washington Commanders. And again, I'm a big believer if you have a great defense, and I think they have at least a top 10 defense, you can win some games, especially in a conference that is as weak as the NFC, and especially in a division where if you take the Eagles out, who again I think will take a step back this season, but they're still by far the best team in that division. But you remove the Eagles from that division, I don't know if we're as far away from the other 3 being separated as people think we might be. But that being said, Brett, what do you think as far as will the Commanders finish last this season? You don't got to tell me where you think they're going to finish unless you think they're finishing last. But do you think there's any chance that they come out of the basement and finish somewhere else?
Honestly, I think they finished 3rd. I think the Giants finished last this year.
Woo! Woo, Freddie, he said the Giants finished last. Woo!
Listen, it's going to be an interesting one. I think that defense is extremely elite. They have McLaurin. So I think there's potential to still finish around 500 for them, but I think they regress a little bit. I'm really interested to see how Sam Howell does for sure. I think their biggest issue is going to be offense. I think that there's a real chance that they have a lot of stalling out. Now the defense is on the field more, and you're going to gas them out a lot quicker. But overall, I'm kind of going off a hunch on this one because I think them and the Giants are actually a lot closer than we think. Except, I think that even if you just have Terry McLaurin, I think that's better than anything that I think that's better than a lot that the Giants have to offer. I think the issue with I'll save my issues with the Giants for later, but yeah, I think that they'll finish 3rd, and I think the Giants will surprise everyone and regress this year.
Now, Brett, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Giants, recently acquired Darren Waller, and he is going to save their offense. So you may not be aware of this, all right? But you talk to Giant fan, that is going to be the guy for them this season. Casey, how close would you say the distance between Sam Howell and Danny Dimes is?
I would say it's pretty close. I think Danny Dimes is a really overrated quarterback. I mean, the good thing about Danny Dimes is he can run the ball, and like people might not think that of him, but like I think that they're a lot closer than a lot of people would think. Like I would almost want Sam Howell over Danny Dimes probably.
So that brings us into the Giants. Giants finished 3rd last year. They were a playoff team. They really did exceed expectations. Let's be honest. Going into last season, new head coach, very unproven Daniel Jones, which I would argue, I don't know what he necessarily proved last season, but apparently he did something because the man got paid a lot of money for throwing 15 touchdowns and 5 picks. He got a lot of money for doing that. And I'm not saying I could step in there and throw 15 touchdowns and only 5 picks, but I look around the league and there's a lot of guys that can do more than that, and they didn't get the money. So whatever, he got his bag, and that's good for him. Saquon Barkley is back in the building, which is definitely what I think New York needed to at least have a shot this year. But at the same time, I look at John, and a lot of things went their way last season. And that's what happens in the NFL, right? You get these breaks, you get these moments, and the ball bounces your way. A tip pass goes your way. Half a second goes your way where the ball comes out, where in another situation it might not come out on time, which is fine. Those things happen, and those things could happen again. But if you're a Giant fan and you're going into this season thinking, because we made the playoffs last year, we're a playoff team this year, where do you sit on that, Casey?
I don't think the Giants are a playoff team. I think they're gonna. I agree with Brett that they're gonna possibly be the last place team in the East. I mean, I think it's gonna be between them and Washington, whoever makes pretty much the least amount of mistakes. And I feel like the Giants are gonna be not that good. I don't think they're gonna be a playoff team. Their defense is gonna keep them in games, but like I don't think their defense is also. I think their defense is okay. I don't think their offense is good at all. It depends on how Saquon's going to want to play, because to me, I think it all depends on how. If Saquon can stay healthy, they can possibly be a playoff team, but I don't think they will be.
So all the conversation these last couple of weeks, Brett, has been around practice. Practice. We talk in practice, and we talk in practice with Dak Prescott. The man throws picks in the regular season. The man throws picks in the playoffs if the Cowboys get there. The man throws picks in practice. I think the man just throws picks. But apparently, and a lot of this is because Dak came out and he said, I am not going to throw that many interceptions this year. To which I said, why would you say that? Why are you coming out here and just making statements based on what? You just don't want to throw picks? So now you're just not going to throw picks? I'm pretty sure situations dictate that a lot more than your desire not to throw picks. I'm pretty sure no quarterback has a desire to throw picks, right? I'm pretty sure if you ask every NFL quarterback, do you want to throw picks this year? They're all going to be like, no, I'm good. I would rather not throw any. But hey, Dak came out and said, I'm not going to throw as many picks. Then my man turns around and starts throwing picks in practice, to which Cowboy fans say, hey, at least it's in practice and it's not in a real game. Cowboy fan, I hear you. But then you look at people like the great Kobe Bryant who say things like, you practice the way you play. And that's why Kobe focused so much on practice. So if he's throwing picks in practice, Brett, what the heck is going to change come game time, aside from the fact that he's now throwing against a defense that he doesn't know and he hasn't seen day after day and week after week? What's different?
I don't think anything's different. I think the only benefit he might get is he's not going to face a defense as good as the Cowboys every week. But I don't really think there's any difference. I really don't. And I think you're going to run into an issue now where he made that comment. So now every interception he throws it's going to get scrutinized. He put the spotlight on his one weakness, on one of his weaknesses. And now any pick, it's going to get talked down about. And now he's going to have even more negative. People are going to say even more negative things about him. Dak's going to throw some picks, and like you said, it's just who he is. It's not like quarterbacks come into the season and go, man, I'm going to throw at least 10 picks this year. All right, let's get it. So the Cowboys are an interesting one. I think Dak's interception issues, I think that's going to hold them back. I think a bigger issue is Mike McCarthy. I really dislike him as a calling plays and just kind of being a head coach overall. I thought he was stale 7 years ago in Green Bay. So, but when it comes to Dak, I think the comments were bad, and I still think he throws double-digit interceptions.
Casey, if you look at Dak Prescott's career, I think it's fair to say his first season, statistically as a whole, was really his best season in the league. And if you look at what he had that first season, he had the best offensive line that he's probably had of all his seasons in Dallas. He had the most healthy offensive line. He had a still productive and valuable Zeke behind him. And he simply had better pieces as a whole around him on both sides of the ball. And he wasn't asked to do a lot. He was asked to keep the ship afloat. He was asked to hit the easy stuff. When you have a chance to take the deep stuff, put it to where your guy can get it, and don't lose games for us. And now you hear things out of Dallas, how Mike McCarthy is saying, we want to give Dak more. We want to put more on Dak's plate. And we're going to put more on Dak's plate when the offensive line isn't as good as it was. They lost Zeke, who, he lost a step as a running back, but he didn't lose a step in pass protection. He is one of the best running backs when it comes to pass protection in the league. He has an offensive lineman who isn't happy. He's holding out. We don't know what that's going to look like this year. He has a wide receiver situation where it's all right on paper, but he's had better wide receiver situations in the past. He lost a tight end who caught 60 or 70 balls for him last year and was definitely a safety blanket when he needed it. So you take all that, and none of it is a huge game changer, right? None of it's like, oh my God, because of this, the Cowboys are going to be awful. But they're all these little things. And on top of that, we want Dak to do more. So when you add all that together, Casey, what do you think the outcome is going to be individually for Dak Prescott as a quarterback this season?
I feel like they're putting way too much pressure on him. I mean, when you add up all those little things, it comes into like a big thing to where it's like, okay, well, you remove all these small pieces. Okay, well, now your pie, it has all these missing pieces in it. Now you're expecting one person that, in my opinion, is not that good of an NFL quarterback to fill in all those missing pieces. And it's like, you're just going to put way too much pressure on that guy to where, like you said, the offensive line isn't as good as it used to be. Your running game isn't as good as it used to be. You don't have that good of a running game to where you can hand the ball off to someone established to run, and then you're putting less pressure off of Dak to where he can make those passes, and doesn't have all that pressure on him.
And then, of course, we shift to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's fair to say they are probably the favorites to win the division this season. But at the same time, Eagle fan, and I don't want you to come at me, but I want you to understand your schedule is brutal this year. The talent at the quarterback position that the Eagles play on their schedule this year as compared to last year is vastly different. So while I also do think the Eagles are the favorites to win their division, and I do think they are going to win their division, I don't think they're going to win it running away. I think they might win it by a game or maybe by virtue of tiebreaker over Dallas, because just the way their schedule sets up, that run of games they have towards the middle of their schedule, it's absolutely brutal. But as far as the NFC East as a whole goes, I'm going Philly, Dallas, Washington, with the Giants on the bottom. Casey, how do you have it shaking out NFC East this season?
I'm almost the same way. I go Philly, Dallas. I'm going to go Washington and then the Giants. And then, but I feel like Washington and the Giants are going to be really close to each other. I feel like Dallas is going to be kind of a little bit ahead of them. And I honestly feel like the Eagles are going to kind of run away with it just because I feel like the other three teams are not going to be as good. Like the Eagles might be 11, maybe 12 wins. I just feel like the other teams might be in the single-digit win column this year.
And Brett, what are your final rankings? NFC East 2023.
I have the same as you guys. I got Eagles, I got Cowboys, then I got the Commanders, and then I got the Giants. I think the Eagles will still run away with this division. I think it'll be a minimum. They'll win it by at least 2 games because I think all 3 teams just regress hard. Like you said, I agree with the whole Dak Prescott thing. I think you're putting way too much on him. You're giving him the palette of like if he was an elite quarterback would be able to make it work. But I think Dak Prescott's peak, I think he peaks about Kirk Cousins on a Sunday in a Sunday afternoon game. I don't think he's elite, but he can look really good and give you the illusion he's elite sometimes, but that's just not him. So I think the Cowboys peak, they might win 10 games, but I think they'll be single digits. Commanders already kind of said my piece on them, and the Giants, I think they'll be single digits too. I think you're going to put too much on Saquon. And listen, Giants fans, don't sell me on Darren Waller. I don't really care about Darren Waller. He's going to play for about 5 weeks, just like in the Raiders. What's going to happen? He's going to get hurt again. And then he's going to quit on the team, just like he did on the Raiders. He quit on the Raiders last year. He quit on them in that game versus the Bengals. You're telling me that's the guy that's going to come in and save your offense? And now you're expecting Saquon to have another full year healthy, being your best receiver and running back? No, that's not going to happen. I don't think that everything bounces right their way, and I think that you're you're going to put too much on Saquon, and he's going to end up hurt this year. And it's going to be a really bad year for the Giants.
And, I hate to have to bring this up, but I think with the temperature of the running back in the league heading into this season, I think this is a valid question. If a running back gets a little banged up this year and they're in a situation where they have a contract coming up next year, are they going to push through the injury and risk further injury? And I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, because they've already had these conversations. They have had conversations of, if I'm hurt, maybe I should just sit out until I'm 100%. Why put my body through that grind and risk further injury that could shorten my career by a year or two when you're not going to pay me what I feel I'm worth anyways? So I'm very curious, and I know we're going to mention Saquon because he does have an injury history, but I don't want to just single him out. I'm talking about running backs as a whole. I'm curious to see when a starting running back ends up on the injury report for something not minor, but medium, we'll say. Are we going to see them go from questionable to pushing through and starting that following week? Or are we going to see situations where questionable lingers for a couple of weeks until they feel they're closer to 100% and the re-injury risk isn't there? Because again, let's be honest, running backs are not taking the bag. Not getting it this season. They're not getting it next season. They're probably not getting it for at least another 4 or 5 years if it becomes cyclical and comes back around. And that's just, being optimistic. I think a fair estimate is they're not getting it for a while. So I'm intrigued to see what the injury situation looks like across the league, and if we see running backs play hurt and push through and try to give more. But gentlemen, that's a wrap. That's a wrap for the season debut of Sunday Morning Drive here on Sports Empire Network. What a blast having you both here. We're going to finish out the show with the best thing you saw from the NFL this weekend. And I'll go first, because I know I just threw that on you. I didn't put that in the show notes. So I'll give you a few seconds to think about the best thing that you saw. The best thing I actually saw this morning, I don't know his name. I apologize to all of my Jacksonville Jaguar fans out there. But I saw this quarterback from the Jacksonville Jaguars literally get dogpiled by 2 Cowboys and his own teammate, somehow slip out of that, only to get hit by another Cowboy, not go down, spin out of that, only to have a 4th Cowboy drag him down by the ankles, and he still threw a touchdown pass. It was literally one of the greatest quarterback moments that I've ever seen. It was like a pinball out there. It was absolutely fantastic. But that was my moment from week 1 of the preseason thus far. How about you?
I would say when I'm not a Steelers fan, but Kenny Pickett and George Pickens, they're gonna be a nasty duo. And like there was a pass to where Pickett hit Pickens right over the middle, and Pickens just ran right through the defense and scored a touchdown. I mean, I think Pickens is gonna be that was probably my moment of the whole weekend was that.
Closest.
Let's say my someone I was really impressed with, and this is going to be a very homer answer, but Emmanuel Wilson, he's a young running back for the Packers who played this past preseason. I didn't hear about him coming in, but he had only 6 carries, 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. This dude showed big playability and the ability to make an impact, possibly as soon as this year. Maybe the Packers keep him as a 3rd running back, and if Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon go down, now you have another guy to slide in. Or I think he's showing enough that another team, he could very well easily scoop him up and give him a shot. But I don't really have a specific moment, but that's just someone who I was really impressed with this year. He showed some big playability, and I can't wait to see more of him next preseason game.
And guys, before we get out of here, I'll admit when I have egg on my face, and I really hammered young Justin Fields after he called himself one of the 5 greatest rushing quarterbacks of all time. And then my guy comes out and he throws 3 passes for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. For this week, Justin, fine. You have it. For this week, I will give you your flowers. I still think you're going to be owing me many, many more flowers by the time this season comes to an end. But for week 1 of the preseason, I will say I was wrong about Justin Fields. We can revisit this conversation in 2 weeks or so when I think he's back to where he actually is. But I had a lot of Chicago Bear fan coming after me that, look what he did, 3 for 3, 129, 2 to okay, fine. You can have it for week 1 of the preseason. We'll see where we are. Give it a month or two. We'll see where we are. Gentlemen, absolute pleasure this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure, those of us who watched us, thank you. I really appreciate it. Make sure you show us some love. Hit the like button. Make sure you set your alarm on your phone. We want you to be here every Sunday. We're going to be here a while, now until February-ish. So make us a part of your Sunday morning routine right here. Sunday Morning Drive, Sports Empire Network. Guys, I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.
See you guys.